Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the lovely Let's Build An App.com YouTube channel. Hope you're doing well. It's been quite a while since I last put out a SwiftUI or UI kit video on the channel. I am finally back. I've been experiencing some health issues, but nothing too extreme. I think I'm probably back to 90 or 95% of my health. So I think I'm ready to start making videos again for the channel. With all that being said, let me tell you what I've been working on for the last couple of weeks or a couple of months here. And before I kind of talk about that, let me show you my desktop screen right over here. And basically, I've been trying to replicate some applications using SwiftUI. And obviously, you can see these three applications right now. We have the calculator application on the left side. In the middle here, we have a Yelp style app. And then on the right side, we have something called Notflix, right? So let me kind of show you what this does right here. So a lot of really nice looking animations. You can kind of slide this left and right as well. All right, so that looks pretty good. And the calculator, let's make sure that U works. So 9 times 6 should be 54. That looks great. And here is the Yelp style app. All right, so over the last month or two, one thing that I've noticed with SwiftUI is that I think I'm running into some very common issues with the layout of all these applications. They might not look like super similar, but you're going to be running into some stacking issues with HStack, VStack, and ZStack. And if you don't know how they work at a very deep level, you're going to find that it's pretty difficult to build out this type of UI easily. So what I want to do in today's video is I want to kind of guide you through HStack, VStack, and ZStacking. But before I show you any code, I want to go ahead and identify the stacking inside of these three applications. And I'll start off with the easier one right here. So take a look at it and try to identify all of the stacking that you can see inside of this app right now. I'll kind of give you a second here while I turn on my tool. So let's turn this guy on. Why don't we use yellow for HStacking? You can see that we have these four buttons right here in a horizontal orientation, right? Flowing from left to right. So that's one HStack. And similarly, right below, we have some further HStacking here, and also down below. So this is 5 HStacks inside of an overall VStack. And the VStack is this entire thing, starting from the safe area inset all the way down here. And to kind of summarize, the VStack has 6 components. It has this area right here, which contains the display of the 0, and then these 5 yellow HStacks below. Finally, there's also another stack. There's a ZStack that you can't really see because of the black background, but maybe I'll show you guys that in a little bit here. So next, I want to move on to the middle simulator, which is the Yelp application. And so you can kind of tell that there's a lot of stacking going on here as well. So let's go through the same exercise of determining the stacks right now. Let me use the pink color. And right off the bat here, you can kind of see we have a VStack for all these components inside of here. And it's basically contained inside of a scroll view. We have a VStack right here that contains the reserve a table for this weekend label and also this button right here. There's actually a ZStack all the way up at the top here. And let me explain the ZStack. You might make the ZStack somewhere around this edge or somewhere right here. But I guess it's more technically correct to have the ZStack represented by this border right now. So there are 3 components that are being stacked on top of each other. There is the image view in the back right here. So the image with the tomatoes, that's all the way behind on the ZStack layer. And then above the image is actually these 2 components. So the label and also the button. This is on top of the image right in the back there. And then finally, this button right here. So it's not really a button, but this search bar with the magnifying glass and also this text right here. This is also on top of the same yellow ZStack in the back, and it's actually on top of the image. And the way that it's kind of being positioned right now is kind of having a negative padding on the very bottom. That's kind of why it's outside the bounds of my ZStack right now. Okay, and down below we have a very same pattern of using a VStack HStack pattern. So let's use the green here. Basically, we have an HStack with all 4 of these buttons right here, similarly down here as well. Inside of this guy, we have a VStack, and the VStack is going to contain our fork and knife icon and also our restaurant's label. So as you can tell, using HStack, VStack, and ZStack is very, very common inside of SwiftUI applications. And again, you really have to understand how to utilize it to make your UI very easy to build out. Now, very similarly to these 2 applications right here, the Netflix app also uses HStacking, ZStack, and VStacking. So, you can imagine a HStack that goes from the left to right over here, some kind of VStack all the way from top to bottom. And then finally, there is a ZStack that allows us to zoom in right here and put everything on top of this screen right here. So click on that. This is on a different layer. And inside of this layer, we have a VStack and also some HStacking right here. So somewhere down here, we have some HStacking. Okay, so that's a lot to take in all at once. And if you want to build out these applications, you can definitely go ahead and try to do so. But I'm not going to go and do that in today's lesson. Instead, what I want to do is to build out this application and walk you through how the stacking actually works within SwiftUI. So being able to place the things on the top left corner here, have this line reach all the way to the right side, and have this guy right here fill out all of the vertical spacing inside of your stacking. Using this exercise, you should be able to get a very solid understanding of how the stacking actually is worked out. And then likewise, all the way down at the very bottom right, we have something that's aligned at the very bottom above the safe area inset right here, all the way on the right of the application. And then finally, everything is actually stacked on top of a ZStack, which allows us to align things to the safe area insets. If I rotate the application right now, you'll see that the insets on the left and the right are maintained correctly, as well as above the home indicator view. And then everything strings and is being anchored to the left and right accordingly. All right, so let's go ahead and try to figure out how to build out this application right now. Let me slide these guys out of the way here. I'll put this guy in the top right corner. And I think I'm going to use this simulator right here as my working canvas. All right, so hopefully you guys can still see what the heck is going on here. I'm going to slide in my Xcode application editor. So this is Xcode, obviously. And whenever you create a brand new application, right, you have this scene delegate, the content view, and you can launch this inside of whatever simulator you want. So there is the simulator on the left side. Maybe I'll shrink these guys down just a little bit here to make sure you guys can see. Okay, this is the iPhone XS. You can see a ton of different simulators right now. Let me just launch this in the left simulator here. And everything should be ready to go. We get our hello world. Okay, so how exactly do we try to kind of start learning about stacking, right? Well, the first thing you have to realize is that this content view right here with the text of hello world is pretty much represented by this label there. And something that you can do to make sure that you understand where the spacing is being occupied is to use a simple background of color.red. Okay, so I'm going to use a color.red right here. You'll see that our label is now in red. So this is a very useful technique if you can't figure out where the spacing is being taken up with. And the next thing you want to do is to maybe comment this guy out. And when you're building out SwiftUI applications, right, most of the time you're going to start with some kind of VStack. And so inside of our VStack, we'll say LBTA and just run this guy again. If you're using Catalina, you might be able to use the preview on the right side, which might be a little faster, but I'm still on Mojave, so that's kind of why I'm using the simulator instead. On the right side, we have our VStack with our LBTA directly centered in the middle. And you might be asking, why is it centered in the middle? Why is it not up here, down here, or on left and right? So by default, a VStack will center everything in the middle of the entire component. And the reason why it's being placed here is really tricky, and you really have to understand why it's doing this. And the easy way to understand this is to make sure that you give your VStack a background color. So I'm going to give it a color of .blue here. And let's kind of see where the blue is going to show up. Now, initially, I was expecting the blue to take from the left right here to the right, all the way from the top to the bottom. I was assuming that it would take all of that space, but it turns out the VStack is only going to occupy whatever is inside of the elements of the children here. So we have one children here. If we make this 1, 2, 3, rerun it again, the VStack background color is going to take up this space only. Okay, so that's very important for you to understand. Don't assume that it's going to take all of this space here. Now, the next question you might have is, well, what if I want to align this guy to the top or bottom? It's actually impossible to kind of make it do that if you don't include some spacing. So I'm going to include a spacer right here and try to think about what this is going to do with the application. Basically, a VStack is going to take all of the elements inside of it. It's going to push this guy all the way down to the bottom. You see LBTA 1, 2, 3. You can give this guy a background color. So background, and let's say color.red, and see what this guy will render out for us. You'll see our LBTA in the red right here. Everything that the VStack is going to take up now is going to include this spacer right here in the blue, and also the red all the way down here. If you take the spacer and flip it to the bottom of your stack view, it's going to rearrange the order and have the label at the top instead, obviously. Okay, so this is very tricky, and it took me a while to understand this concept with the stacking. Something else that you can do to make sure that you fully see what's going on is to give this background, the spacer, a background. So this one is also very tricky. I'm going to say color dot, let's say orange for now. You would expect the blue color to be taken up with this orange spacer color instead, but that's not what it does, surprisingly. And what I'm going to do to kind of show you what's really going on is to give this a frame of width, and let's give it a frame of width 10. I'm going to run this right now. You'll see that the spacer actually will not show up until you give it a width inside of a VStack. You'll have to do the opposite to give it a height in an HStack, which I'll show you a little bit. And so this is basically how you arrange your elements inside of a VStack. Again, this is very important for you to understand. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult to lay things out. I'm going to place another label all the way at the bottom here. You'll see we have a text at the very top here. We have the same blue VStack in the middle, and then the spacer and also the bottom label. Okay, so definitely a lot to go through. You're gonna have to play around with the layout yourself to fully grasp how the spacing is being taken up inside of a SwiftUI application. But this is a very good starting point for us today. The next thing I want to go through is the HStack concept inside of SwiftUI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through the same exercise right now. And let's give this an HStack and text right here and LBTA. I'm going to rerun this. And you'll find that this right here is actually going to give us the same output as a VStack. And it's very, very similar to kind of the VStack scenario. I'm going to give this guy a color of blue just to make it similar to our VStack example. You'll see that the HStack treats the children very, very similarly. We have the HStack having only the space that is being occupied by the LBTA children text component here. And then we are going to now go through the same exercise of giving this a spacer. And what do you think is going to happen when I run this application right now? Is there going to be pushing down, pushing right, pushing left? I'm going to run this right now. Some of you guys can pretty much guess what's going to happen, but within an HStack, because things are being aligned horizontally from left and right, this guy is going to push the spacer from right here all the way to the right side there. If you reverse this and put the spacer on your right side, it's going to push the label all the way to the left corner edge there. Okay, so again, this is very tricky and you have to understand what's going on. I'm going to give this a frame of height of 5 and then a background color. Let's say color dot, why don't we use green for now? And let's see what this is going to give us. We have the green, which might be a little bit invisible, but it is definitely there right now. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to push the text. Let's see. I'm going to say text LBTA, spacer, and text LBTA. you'll see that showing up right here. Maybe I'll change this color to yellow to make things a little bit easier to follow here. Okay, so here is the final example, which are with our HStack, and this looks pretty good. The next thing I want to kind of go through right now is, let's say I want to lay out this application right here, right? So we have the purple LBTA on the top left. We have some kind of VStack that allows us to stack this all the way on the bottom right here. And then we have some kind of background color inside the green that's behind everything, right? Most of the time what you'll find is that you are going to want to stack, or you want to place your elements inside of these safe area insets, but you also want to give it a background color. I've found this to be pretty common throughout my couple of experimentations in the past month. So how exactly do you lay this guy out inside of SwiftUI, you might be asking? Well, let me go through this exercise right now. I'm not sure if I can do it 100%, but I will certainly try right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a VStack right here. I'm going to use an HStack within the VStack like so. And I know that it's going to look something like this. I'm going to say spacer right here, and let's say text so text, and we'll use this guy as the left LBTA component, back around and color dot purple like that, and we'll use the same thing right here. This guy should be the right LBTA. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm going to run this now. Let's kind of see what happens. We have the top right here. This is my HStack with the left LBTA. This is my right one. And then in the middle, we have the spacer here. Again, the spacer doesn't really have a background color until you set some kind of width and background. So, you know, that's what this looks like right now. I'm going to now push this HStack label all the way on the right edge. And the way I'm going to do that is to push this right here, put a spacer here, put a spacer here. And hopefully that should be able to get me where I want to go. We have the left here, the right here. And if you want to give these guys some padding, you guys can do this. So padding all in, let's say 16. And you can do the same thing here and just rerun your application. Obviously you can, play around with the padding until you're happy. This is a somewhat tricky issue, but the ordering of this actually matters. So I'm going to put a padding here and put the padding before the background color. So again, to make sure you understand why it does this, but basically this is what the padding gives you if you put it before the background operation on the right side there. Okay, that looks pretty good. If you want to make this guy like maybe a frame of, let's see, height and 5 background, let's say color dot red. I think we can start to put this thing together right here. So that's our red right here. If you want to include some spacing, you guys can do spacing of maybe 12. It doesn't really matter, but basically this is how you would change your spacing to kind of match that right here. If you want to give your VStack the background color, I think this is something like maybe yellow. So yellow, I'm going to finally make this appear yellow right here. This is looking pretty good. If you want to make this blue line show up like that, you guys can do a frame of width of 5 background, and let's see, color dot blue. Okay, now I guess I'm going to just leave it up to you guys to figure out how to do this at the very bottom, but it's very similar to the very top here. You just have to make sure that you reverse the order of your elements. Okay, now the final exercise is how exactly do you place the green behind everything, right? Well, in this specific use case, we are almost always going to use a ZStack. So how do you use a ZStack? Well, it's very similar to the other stacks. So let's say ZStack. And I'm going to go ahead and cut all this code, paste that in here, and rerun everything. It's going to show up exactly the same because we're not really doing anything different. The ZStack is just a container, and this is what it looks like. So something that you can try to do is you can give the actual ZStack some kind of other child element. And in SwiftUI, it's actually very easy to give some kind of background color. You just want to say color.green. Now, when you run this, however, you don't exactly see your color.green element. And the reason is because the VStack right here is actually on top of the color.green. I'm going to remove everything and hopefully see my green right now. So that's the green. And again, the VStack is going to be laid out right on top of the green. So, because our yellow is showing through and we're not seeing the green, if you remove this right here, so let me just comment that out. You're going to see the green right now because I just removed the yellow. Okay, so that's how it works. Let me bring back the yellow. And let's now talk about how exactly we place things behind the safe area insets, right? So this took me a little while to figure out completely, but basically the ZStack, for the element inside of it that you want to show inside of the safe area insets, you want to say ignore as safe area with all. So you can put just the top or bottom. Basically, the color green right now, that's the background, it's going to ignore the safe area, allowing it to show through the top notch and also the bottom. If you take this and just use the top, it should hopefully show up at the top just right there, and it's going to ignore the bottom safe area. Likewise, if you use bottom, it's going to reverse what you see inside of the simulator right here. Okay, so hopefully this exercise is helpful for anyone that's trying to learn SwiftUI. Whenever I'm building out these applications inside of, let's say, this simulator right here, right? Sometimes what you'll find is you're going to start laying things out and it's going to shift to the right or shift to the left. Some of the spacing might not be what you expect, and you have to really play around with what exactly is going on inside of your HStack or VStack. It took me a while to figure out how to build out this application right here, but eventually I was finally able to do it. Alrighty, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for today's lesson. If you want to download the source code for today's video and everything that you saw, please head on over to letsbuildthatapp.com, and while you're here, check out all the courses that are available on the homepage. If you want to download the source code for today's video, head on over to the app guides. This is a brand new area of the website, and I'm going to introduce a lot more content. Right now, we have 3 different guides that are available. For today's video, it's all located inside of the Layout Essentials guide. For the very first section of this guide, you can just click into here, and we have a written portion that describes how to exactly build out the application that you saw today. For the other guides, let's say if you want to build out the calculator application right here, you have a different section that allows you to kind of walk through exactly how to build out this entire application using SwiftUI. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed today's video, and if you guys have any questions or comments, make sure to leave that down below. Do not forget to subscribe onto this channel for more videos like this, and also let me know how you feel about the guides right here. Again, there's going to be a lot more content in the very near future. I have a ton of different applications on deck right now that I want to introduce inside of this brand new section of the website. All right, hopefully you guys enjoyed everything, and I'll see you guys in the next lesson. Bye bye, guys.